canker care for the lips because they're getting very tender. Got some bite to it too. So there was a gentleman that lived a couple doors down from us, and he had 4 kids, all T's: Tina, Ted, Toby, Tony. The man's name was Ted Funk Sr. He was a larger than life man who had a teeny tiny waist and arms like that. There's a picture of him passed out drunk, and his arm is bigger than the kids' heads when they're taking the picture next to him. That's passed out. Teeny tiny, like I said, teeny tiny waist, big chest, big sunken eyes, and where I grew up, it used to flood quite a bit, and that old landfill used to have a bunch of trees back there. And one day, some companies came in and clear cut all these trees down, which were a natural barrier for stuff coming down the hill. And we had ditches in the front of our house and between the houses, between Murray and Fosdick. And Ted Jr. and I were throwing a football around in the yard, and then we see the mayor's big silver Lincoln Town car pull up. July 4th was his license plate. Apparently that was his birthday. And here he is in a 3-piece suit. How you doing, boys? Being the politician that he was. And then Mr. Funk comes out. Got the wife beater shirt on, and just the night crawlers hanging out of his arms. Big dude. And the mayor says, "Hey Ted, how you doing? How you doing?" I'm trying to be friendly. And they walk back to the back ditch, and it's got this orange, nasty, foamy water running through it. And Mr. Funk says, "You see that?" He's like, yeah, Ted, I see it." And he grabbed the mayor by the collar of his suit jacket and by the belt of his pants, picked him up like a rag doll, and put his face inches from the water. He's going, "Do you see that? Do you see that?" And the mayor's upside down like this. "Yeah, Ted, yeah." And he goes, "Fix it!" He walks away. So the mayor's fixing his jacket, and he's walking by. These fellas. That same Mr. Funk, all the kids down there had some kind of go-kart or dirt bike or moped or scooter or some kind of motorized vehicle. And he jumped on one of the kids. It was Tony Dedek's Suzuki RM80 two-stroke, which is the real ring ding ding ding, the real whiny ones, not like a 4-stroke. And he is just cranking up and down the road. Fast to go, 60, 70 miles an hour. And then all of a sudden, this guy, one of the neighbors, comes out drunk, and he was trying to sleep, and he's standing in the middle of the street with a baseball bat, and here comes Mr. Funk flying, and he locks it up, skids, puts the kickstand down, and walks up to Mr. Sims, who's holding the baseball bat. And he says, "What you do with that baseball bat, Danny?" Nothing, Ted. I just, I'm trying to sleep in here. You're kind of flying up and down the road here. Can you take it easy?" "Yeah, no problem." Wow, for another hour. When it flooded down there, this is a story that Ted Jr. told me. The Valley Fire Department would come with their big pumps to get the pump out, and Mr. Funk was trying to find the floor drain. And now, mind you, everything in the basement is completely trashed. It's gone. And he's visibly upset. And this one douchebag firefighter, paramedic, whatever he was, part-time guy, is trying to come down the stairs, and he says, "Hey Ted, you need a hand?" He's like, "I'm trying to find this damn drain. I can't." And this guy actually has the balls to tell Mr. Funk in a condescending way, complain, complain, complain. And I wasn't there, but Ted Jr. told me, and he said, "I thought my dad was going to rip this dude's head off." That same Mr. Funk was he was a boxer, and he had us all kids in the neighborhood. There was a ton of kids, and he'd put gloves on us and pair them up. You guys, you fight him, you fight him. And he would just pair you up. So Ted Jr. was picking on the youngest boy, Tony, and he was snapping off the jabs and catching him in the shoulder. And he wouldn't let up. So now Tony's crying, and Mr. Funk comes in and sees this. Now he starts tattooing Ted on the shoulder. And Ted's like, "That's enough." And he said, "That's what your brother said, and you wouldn't stop." So Ted kept doing, Mr. Funk kept doing, hitting Ted. Not hard, but letting him know he's definitely tagging him. And out of the blue, Teddy Jr. winds up and just kicks him with everything he has right in the beanbag. And Mr. Funk goes down like a sack of potatoes. And Mrs. Funk says, "Teddy, you better run." So he takes off down the street, and I'm laughing hysterically because to see Mr. Funk fall down like a oak tree was, and I never thought Ted would ever do that. But later we'd start getting drinking, go out to bars, and Ted was a good-looking kid. He was pretty. All the girls liked him. Kind of resembled Johnny Depp a little bit, and the ladies definitely loved him, liked him. But he was thin, he was skinny, and he kind of had a pretty boy look to him. His hair was crazy, like Edward Scissorhands, and guys would they'd mess with him. They want to fight him all the time, and he had a very, very good left hook, and he'd knock these guys on the ground, and he made a mistake, he'd get on top and they'd roll him over and be done. And that's where I'd come in and try to help him out. So Mr. Funk kind of went off the rails, and so did Ted Jr. So Ted Jr. buys a double up in Garfield Heights, and I move in with him. And I'm barely getting by. I just started. I was working heating and cooling for this local guy, mom and pop shop, and I was getting like $8.50 an hour, like crazy. Could not afford to pay attention, and move in with Ted, and he's got a beautiful '78 Harley Super Glide, and I got this piece of shit motorcycle that I bought for $25. It was a 1983 Honda CM250. It was actually belt driven, and we had met these girls, and they came over to our house, and they wanted to go for a ride on the Harley. And I says, I got a motorcycle. Well, we had been drinking all day, and I go zipping up and down McCracken, and I had just socks on. I'd have tennis shoes on, and his street came up on me way too fast, and I cut the wheel, and my foot went over the foot peg, and totally rendered my toes. They were all bloody, and that was just stupid. Drunk. Speaking of drinking, I turned 21. I go down to this local bar called Donzi's. My buddy's mom owned it. And when she opened it, I worked there and I helped her clean the whole place up. I was the short order cook. I was the busboy. I was a waiter. I was the garbage man. I did it all. And I was at that bar one night, and I was drinking Windsor because that was when my dad drank, and I am completely drunk. I'm face down in the bar, and the bartender girls are working there. Kathy, who's passed away now, and Kim, and they go, you got to go. You okay to drive? And mind you, I am face down in the bar, and I walk the bar all the way out, and they let me out the kitchen, and I get into my '87 Sunbird stick shift that has a completely blown clutch. So I got to go up Granger Hill, which is crazy steep, to go up to Garfield to go back to Ted's house where I'm living. And some guy is really on my ass, so I give him the go around sign, and lights me up. You got to be shitting me. Here it is. It's my first DUI, no doubt about it. But I had heard somewhere along the line, if you put a penny in your mouth, you can beat the breathalyzer. Well, I had the old cassette molded area in the center console where you put your cassettes. Well, that was loaded with change. And I just start firing this change in my mouth, and I'm packed like a chipmunk getting ready for wintertime. I'm completely loaded with change, disgusting change. And a cop comes to the door, he knocks on the window, and I roll it down. And I'm spitting change out. And he says, was that change you were spitting? Yeah, it's changed. Why? I don't know. You been drinking? Yeah. Come on out. So I'm starting my plea with this guy. I'm a nice guy. This isn't something I normally do. And I said, why'd you pull me over? He said, well, you were riding the curb. I said, yeah, and I told you to go around me. He says, no, you were bouncing off the curb. I'm going to give you a DUI test. Very simple. I want you to walk 10 paces, heel toe, turn around 10 paces. Okay? I go 1, 2, 3, turn around, 1, 2, 3. Here you go. Ta-da. He says, no, I said 10. I start walking. I get step 6 or 7. I fall right into the guy. Hold on to him. Picks me back up. Or straightens me back up. And he says, I got one more test for you. I want you to say the ABCs, A through Z, without stopping and without singing them. Begin now. No problem. A, B, J, Q. And I start laughing. And I said, I can't believe I can't say the ABCs. He says, well, I understand you're nervous. Give it a shot again. A, B, J, Q. I can't do it. So he puts me in the back of the cruiser, and I'm thinking, I'm going to jail. There's no doubt about it. So another officer comes to back him up, and he says, you work for Joe Laboda? I said, yeah. He says, you drive his trucks? I said, oh, yeah. He said, you realize we give you DUI, you're out of a job. Probably. All right, and he leaves. So then the other officer comes back. He says, okay, I'm going to follow you to the top of the hill. You so much as weave a little bit, I'm pulling you over, you're going to jail. Now, mind you, I am on Granger Hill, which is such a grade that they don't make roads like that anymore because they're too illegal. They're that steep. And here I am on there, blown clutch. So I rip it into second gear, spin them again, and I'm one-eyeing it. Ironically, I'm blind now. I've got one eye now. So I get up to the light, and he hits the lights, and then loop does a U-turn and leaves me. I get home, I'm vomiting. I'm a mess. So Fast forward 10 years, and I put my application in to be a police officer. The crazy part about this story is the officer that pulled me over, I ended up sharing a cruiser with and a desk with. The backup officer was now the chief who hired me. Crazy, absolutely crazy. And then I'm really, really glad I stopped drinking because I would have killed somebody. No doubt about it. Drinking. Drinking was every weekend. And the crew that I ran with, they didn't say, hey, you want to go out tonight? It was, you going boozing? Yeah, I'm going boozing. And we did. And my one buddy, Mongo, he's 6'6", 300 pounds. That guy can put some booze away. And it was just Friday and Saturday night down in the Cleveland Flats. Every weekend we were rolling out with some other crew. And we fought every weekend. It was stupid, absolutely stupid. And if somebody looked at me the wrong way, it was over. So I've got some regrets. I was kind of a punk back in the day. And I told Liz, who truly is a gift from the Lord above, if the Lord said, I'm going to design the perfect woman for you, Jason Berger, I give you Liz Novi. This girl, this woman, this gift from the Lord above has come into my life and just showed me a level of happiness that I never even knew existed. The fairy tale story that I'm about to tell you is truly a fairy tale. I'm on that silly Facebook one morning, and I get a pop-up, open up near you, Cleveland Cannabis College. I think it's bullshit, so I delete it. Comes up to my feed again. And it looks legit, so I go down there. I paid it $350 for the 2-day Saturday Sunday introductory course. Second day class, the CEO, young guy, not even 30, pulls me in his office. Richard Pine says, "Hey, I'm looking at your application or your story's intriguing me. Would you tell me a little bit about yourself?" So I give him the short version. He says, "That is one hell of a story. Are you want to share the story?" I said, "I'll share the story with anyone who wants to hear it." He says, "If you don't want to share a story on the school's name, I'll reimburse you for the weekend and help you out with the rest of school." I said, I was never much of a student, but I'll take that offer. The first class was the history of cannabis, and oh my Lord, was that an eye-opener. Up until 1937, hemp, marijuana, cannabis was the number one cash crop in North America. And when I say North America, that's U.S. and Canada. This hemp plant is the number one cash crop. And in 37, there were major players involved, but two major players that had influence to make this plant that has never killed anybody, not only illegal, they made it what's called a Schedule 1 drug. For a drug to be Schedule 1, it has to have two criteria. One, highly addictive, which is not, and two, have zero medical value, which it's been used for medicine for millennia. So now that this plant is now on Schedule 1 here in the States, nobody can do any type of testing on it. Well, just because they're not testing in the States doesn't mean they're testing worldwide. Israel is leading the world on this plant. Dr. Raphael Mechoulam, Israel and Spain. Dr. Raphael Mechoulam from Israel, they call him the godfather of medical marijuana. He discovered back in the 90s, early 90s, that every mammal on the planet has what's called an ECS. It stands for endocannabinoid system. It regulates just about everything in the body. It's one of the largest systems in the body. And Liz just sent me an article stating less than 13% of all medical schools in the United States even teach the ECS. That'd be like not teaching the central nervous system. That's how important the ECS is. Consequently, the cannabis plant has over 100 cannabinoids in the plant, and there's only one cannabinoid, THC, that creates a psychoactive effect, and that's only after it's heated. And all these cannabinoids work synergistically together at what they're calling the entourage effect. There's a CB1 receptor in the brain and a CB2 receptor in the periphery of the body. these cannabinoids act like a lock and a key, and they shut off the cancer in your body. Why this is not front page news is beyond me. So, I end up acing the midterm. I get a email from the school stating, you've been selected as one of our outstanding students. You've also been elected as one of our student ambassadors. If you so choose this ambassadorship, we'd like to have you give a speech at our next upcoming open house. So my buddy's in a print shop, and I have him make 2 shirts, one black, one green, big pot leaf on it. It says, don't just burn it, learn it. I give a speech to over 100 people, get a standing ovation, get approached by a gentleman. He says, man, that was one hell of a speech. He says, are you one of, I'm one of 6 guys, and this is back in 2016 when Ohio was trying to get all their dispensaries. And he says, I'm one of 6 guys, and we're trying to get a dispensary in Parma, which is one of the largest suburbs of Cleveland, and also in Lakewood. We'd like you to be a part of our team. I said, what capacity? He said, your story is unreal. So I went to Parma City Council, and I went to Lakewood City Council, and I spoke on behalf of this plant. Again, I got approached by the council members at both Parma and Lakewood, thanking me for the information. They had no idea. And every doctor that I've met in the last 5 years, doctor, nurse, tech, surgeon, any medical personnel I've ran into in the last 5 years, which has been a lot, multiple hospitals, multiple states, multiple cities. Have you ever heard of the ECS, endocannabinoid system? Every mammal on the planet? No, nope, never heard of it. And if they say, what is it? Then I know they want to learn. If they go on their way, then that's not worth my time to even waste my breath on trying to explain to them. But the ones that do say they want to hear it, I give my spiel. And they're floored because they've never heard of it. And I encourage them to, and I encourage you to look up on YouTube Mara Gordon and Ann Zeldas. Mara Gordon is this brilliant woman out of California who, she was an athlete in college, and she got a back injury. She had back surgery. During the surgery, she ended up, after surgery, ended up getting meningitis. Put her in a wheelchair, she's drooling, really bad shape. Years later, a friend from college comes over her house, and she says, do you mind if I light up a joint? She goes, I don't want that stink in my house, go out in the garage. So I follow in the garage. And she says, you know what? It's been years since I had a hit of that. Let me take a puff. She said 2 puffs, and her pain that she's had for years went from a 9 to a 2, and she said, you got pissed off. She said, how come nobody's ever told me about this plant? And she started doing her dosing with the edibles. And this is years ago, before anything was really regulated. And the problem they had with edibles back then, there was no consistency in the dosing. And she said, one night I would be wiped out, slept like a rock. Next night, same product, same dosage, or same amount, and I'd be anxious and couldn't sleep. And it wasn't the same, so I decided to go on my own and make my own edibles. And then, long story short, she's now opened up this company, Ann Zelda's, and she has the 2 main doctors from Spain, Dr. Cristina Sanchez and Dr. Manuel Guzman, who discovered, I don't know how, in the 2000s, they're now injecting THC cannabis, Delta 9, in petri dishes to cancer cells, different cancers. And it's doing what they're calling apoptosis, which stands for, simply put, the cell commits suicide in a clean way. It doesn't damage any of their cells, none of the good cells, and they move from petri dish to small animals. And they're actually starting to try to get trials on humans. But what she has done, she's amassed a database of different cancers and another database of different cannabis cultivars or varietals. People call them strains. Strains are bacteria and viruses. Cannabis is a plant, so it's a cultivar or varietal. But for story purposes, and everybody knows strains. So she's got different strains that match up best with these cancers, and she's got over a 70% success rate. And I listen to these podcasts. She's just marvelous. She said, the patients I get, we are their Hail Mary. We are their last chance. Had they come earlier, I know that my percentage would be much higher. So I called them. I got an appointment with Dr. McElroy, and good news. Last Thursday, I had spinal fluid draw out of it's called an Oneida reservoir. I tell people, if you remember the old Reebok pump with that diaphragm and the tongue of the shoe to pump up the shoe to make it tighter on you, I got a little diaphragm here, and they could punch it, draw the fluid out of it. It's way, way easier than doing a lumbar punch. So they drew that out. They took blood work, and then Friday, Liz and I drove down to the James Cancer Center at Ohio State in Columbus, Ohio, 2 hours south of me, which blows me away that I've been dealing with this disease for over 14 plus years. Actually, today is day 5,011 days since my diagnosis. 14 plus years. That is insane. And the issue that I'm running into, I'm one of the longest living survivors of this disease. Certainly on my little private worldwide Facebook Central Nervous System Support Group website. And there's one other guy who I think is 15 years. And these doctors tell me, oh, we've got patients that go 20 years. Can I have their name? Can I talk to them? Nope, no, dude. HIPAA. Well, here's my number. Have them call me. I think that's all bullshit. I don't know if there's anybody out there that's 20 years out. This is a horrible disease. So the issue that I'm running into is when I go to Mass General in Boston, when I go to Memorial Sloan Kettering in New York City, when I go to the Cleveland Clinic in Cleveland, Ohio, when I go to the James Cancer Center in Columbus, Ohio, everybody says the same thing. We never see patients as healthy as you. Consequently, we never see patients that have had so much treatment as you and have lasted this long. So we don't know if this treatment's going to work or not. So Memorial Sloan Kettering, I asked the doctor, Dr. Gromes, very, very good guy, nice, very intelligent. He actually wrote a paper on this drug I'm currently taking now called Imbruvica. It's a 1-a-day pill of 420 milligrams. Well, he wrote a paper and did a study on it to double that dose to 840. So that's what I'm on. And the first week I had it, 3 days into it, my hands were just itching like crazy. Called the pharmacy. They said you're not flushing out of the system fast enough. So you just drink more water. So I've been drinking more water. Right there. And it's making my lips pretty tender. I'm starting to get the mouth sore, so I'm starting to swish and spit. And Liz bought me this good mouthwash. It's like $10 for like this thing right there, that big. It's like $10. And this one right here is for my lips because my lips are very, very tender. So we back on point. So the James. So the Cleveland Clinic doctor said, no way. Dr. Gromes at Memorial Sloan Kettering, I asked him, I said, why do you like this protocol? And what he told me really caught my attention. He said, every patient with your disease, 65 years of age and younger, I do this procedure on, and I've got an 80% success rate that they're going to go 5 years with no symptoms or side effects from their cancer. Given 2 years to live, I'm 14 out, you're going to give me another 5? Sign me up, buddy. So it's a stem cell transplant. And I said, what happens to the other 20%? He says, well, because we do decimate your immune system down to 0, you are very, very prone to infection. And the major infection that these people are getting is an infection called aspergillus. It's a fungal lung infection, and it's fatal. So I told Liz, I said, wouldn't that be a kick in the face if I go 14 plus years and get taken out by a bug of bacteria, fungal, or virus? So I really don't think it's going to be an issue because Liz is so OCD and on the ball. I got an air filter there, air filter in the bedroom, air filter in the office. This house is tip-top and spotless. She's cleaned top to bottom, vacuumed, washed, everything. Everything's sterile. Everything's organic. She got me in contact with this woman named Jeannie Wallace and this top-notch natural. So Dr. Lise Elschuler is number one, she's a cancer survivor, and number two, she's a doctor by trade, but she practices naturopathic medicine, and she works for a company out of Arizona called Naturopathic Solutions. And I've been under the care of her, and at the end of the 90-minute consult, she customized, personalized a lifestyle plan for me, including diet, exercise, and supplementation. And Liz used to work for this company called the name escapes me right now. Chemo Brain. It's real, guys. It's definitely real, and that's a big concern of mine. Is the 3 days. So here's the standpoint. The test that Liz wanted me to get is called a Nutravail. It's a very, very in-depth blood test. And we get the results back, and she says, I'm not stroking your ego. At my old job, I've seen literally thousands of these tests, and I've never seen a test that had numbers look as good as yours. This is absolutely incredible. And I'd been on Dr. Elschuler's protocol for about a month. So then we had our follow-up appointment with Dr. Elschuler via video chat, and she says, well, these numbers look really good. And Liz says, yeah, best I've ever seen. And she goes, yeah, me too. This is really incredible. So how the hell I had that seizure on October 16th, I had a full grand mal seizure at 4 o'clock in the morning that lasted 4 to 5 hours. And I used to be a police officer, so I qualify to carry my off-duty weapon every year. And I go up to Chicago Heights. I'm pretty good friends with the chief up there, and he qualifies me. And I called him because I wanted to hear the 911 tape. He goes, dude, your lady was unreal. She was just a boss. I go, send me the 911 tape. And for somebody at 4 o'clock in the morning out of a dead sleep to call 911 and be as calm, cool, and collected as she was, I am just so blessed. Speaking of being blessed, get a random phone call last week, buddy named Brian Savitt. Guy was right there with me, boozing, going up to Put-in-Bay, which is basically Sodom and Gomorrah. It's debauchery. It's drunks. It's sex. It's nakedness. It's bars, boats, and booze. So he's now born again. He's married. He's got kids. I mean, they go on vacation to go see Joel Osteen. It's just a 180. But nonetheless, calls me up, niceties, cordial. How you doing? How you feeling? Generally concerned. And I go on to tell him, I said, you know what? I said, I used to hear people say that cancer was the best thing to ever happen to me. And I would think to myself, are you out of your mind? Now I'm one of those people. And I said, the way things are unfolding for me since I got sick are really, really just surreal to me. And he says, do me a favor, do yourself a favor. Get a piece of paper and a pen and track and see and connect the dots what brought you to this point. So, a couple days ago, could not sleep. Did not sleep a wink. Got up at 4 o'clock in the morning, jumped out of bed, went in the office, and I started doing that timeline. And holy shit, it took me all the way back to 4-year-olds. In 4-year-olds, I met what became my best friend from 4-year-olds all the way through senior year of high school and then even after school. And then his first year out of high school, his dad passes away, which was just devastating because that was a huge part of my life. Vacations, did everything with this guy. And very, very did not see it coming. Healthy guy, massive heart attack. So after the funeral, the neighbor, Joe, asked me if I would help him take the flowers up to this retirement home, Jennings Hall. So I go up there with him and he starts asking, what are you doing now? I was landscaping. He says, you want to learn a trade? I'll teach you heating and cooling. Sure. So I started doing heating and cool with him. And then I left him and I went to another company called EMS. And I had been dating a girl from age 21 to 25, and then we broke up. And I was pretty devastated. My hair was super long. I could put my hair in my mouth. Crazy curls. And a coworker of mine says, hey, I'm going to go Put in Bay this weekend. I know you go up there every weekend. And you got any interest in meeting my sister? Sure. Meet the sister. End up dating her from 25 to 28, 29. Had I not met her, there's no way I would have got through the police academy. She typed all 4 of my huge 3-ring binders. This is 98. This is when the Cleveland Indians were really kicking ass. And I'd be watching the game with her dad, and she'd be there typing away. Had I not met her, I would not have become there's no way I would have passed the police academy. Had I not become a cop in Valley View, I never would have been asked to get picked to play on a police travel softball team that traveled all over the nation. It was handpicked officers from the state of Ohio to play in tournaments that raised money for the families of fallen officers. They paid for airfare, hotels, and rental cars. Everything was paid for. And you think of softball, you think a bunch of drunks on Sunday morning. That wasn't it. We were really, really competitive. We actually won. How it happened was I was working day shift. My first week on the job, I get a phone call from my buddy Brad, who was in Independence Department, where I later became a cop. He asked me to come out. He goes, what time you work till? I said 2:30. He goes, get your bat, get out to Warren, Ohio. I said, for what? He said, Ohio Lawman softball. We're in the Police and Fire Olympics. We need you. Get out here. Ended up winning a gold medal. Got picked up on this team. Won a gold, a silver, and 2 gold medals in the Police and Fire Olympics. And I'm the only officer for Valley View Police that's ever been in the Police and Fire Olympics. So had I not got picked up on that team, I would not have met my buddy Jason Schenkel, who helped me with his study guides to pass the test for independence. I don't meet him, I don't get on independence. There's no way I score that well on a test. I'm on independence. I'm sorry, back up to Jason Schenkel. He invites me, because we became really tight, we're still tight to this day. He invites me down to Southern Ohio, to Salt Fork, to go deer hunting with his family that has been going there for years. And I meet his uncle, Rick, who's passed away from liver cancer, hep C, Agent Orange, super nice guy. Blue collar guy, but he knew the system like the back of his hands. After I got sick, so I go to Independence, and I'm only on a month and a half there, and I have my seizure. So had I not gotten my seizure and had this disease, I would not have been on Facebook to meet. Hang on. Had I not gotten sick, Uncle Rick would not have asked me, hey, I got to assume you paid in Social Security before you're a police officer. I said, yeah. He says, call down there, see what they say, be persistent. They're probably going to tell you don't qualify, but make sure you get it. So I called down there, get a nice gentleman on the phone, ask him for the paperwork. He says, I'm sorry you don't qualify. I said, okay, can you send the paperwork? He's like, I can, but it'd just be a waste of your time and ink. And I said, well, that's actually works out well because I've got nothing but time on my hands, and I just went to the store and bought a shit ton of pens. And he started laughing, and he sent it down. So I make sure I cross my T's and dot my I's, have people proofread it, I send it in, and son of a gun if I don't get a check from Social Security every month. Had I not met Jason and his uncle, I would never even know that. So that's extra money in my pocket for doing absolutely nothing. So then I have my seizure, I get sick, and last year I was sleeping 15 to 20 hours a day. I lost 2 inches off my neck, 4 inches off my chest, 4 inches off my waist, over 50 pounds I lost. I get on Facebook, I ask for a walker. And I had been kind of chatting back and forth with Liz. And so there's this private Facebook group, just the school I went to was very small, called Cauga Heights. And our mascot was the Redskins, and somebody made a private group on Facebook called Redskin Lodge. It's solely for alumni. And you could be from the 30s to present day and post on there. And somebody posted a picture about show choir, and I commented on it. I said, shoulda, coulda, woulda, and here's this quiet, mousy girl that I've known my whole life, but never had much interaction with. She comments on my post, 2 little words, still can. I think to myself, now what the hell is Liz Novi commenting on my shit for? So then I started getting sick, and I asked for a walker. And anybody got a walker I can borrow? I can't walk. So she messages me. She goes, hey, Jason, you might want to read this article. I'm a nurse. I'm down in Georgia. I found this for you. And it was phenomenal. So I said, hey, Liz, this is great. This is what I do all day. If you got the time and the energy and you're so inclined, please, you got any more, send them, because that's all I want. Well, she just floods me with this deluge of info. Well, I was dating another girl and got dumped because her dog bit me twice. And I told her, if that dog ever does that again, I'll cave his head in. And this card-carrying PETA member says to me, You threatened a family member of mine, and for that, I can never look at you the same way. We got to go our separate ways. So we go our separate ways. And I tried the internet dates, and they were comical at best. And I don't know if this is recording or not. So I had 2 dates, a potential third one, and I canceled on her. So let me sidebar with that one. She's divorced. She's a nurse. Now get this. Her ex-husband has brain cancer, and she's taking care of him. So that's admirable. So we're supposed to meet at 4:00, and she calls and says, "Can we make it 4:30?" No problem. Well, then she calls again and says, "Can we make it 4:45?" No problem. Well, then I get this random picture that I don't know who it is, and it's this big boned woman, we'll say, floating on a inner tube. And I said, "Who's that?" And she said, now mind you, I put on my profile, I'm looking for athletic and toned. And this person responds. And the first two also responded today, and they're both, all three of them were not athletic and toned in the least bit. Their profile pictures were when they were in college, and their nice cheerleading outfits and whatever they were wearing, but time has not been kind to them. And here I am, I just lost 50 pounds, and they certainly found it, no doubt about it. So I tell the girl now, I said, she goes, "Hey, can we make it 5:00?" And I said, "I'm noticing a pattern here." She goes, what do you mean?" I said, "Well, we were supposed to meet at 4, you bumped to 4:30, and then 4:45, now 5:00. And then you sent me this picture of you, and you look nothing like you said you were." Her comeback was, "Well, I'm sorry I'm not athletic and toned and thin like you like. I just lost a baby, and that's pregnant baby fat, or pregnant weight." So she's out on Tinder or whatever site I was on, and she's obviously banging dudes and getting pregnant. So I cancel on her, and then I look to see is Liz married? She got kids? Doesn't look like it. So I kind of I totally Facebook stalked her, and I messaged her. I says, "Hey Liz, if you ever come back and home for any reason at all, I like to take off for coffee or lunch or something just to pay back for all this other stuff, because I've been really feeling a lot better." And she says, "Actually, I'm looking to move back home anyways, because my mom's getting up in age, so I'll be in town this particular weekend." So I invited her down to my boat, and we absolutely clicked. Just hit it off. And we stayed up till like 3 o'clock in the morning, talking like teenagers. So I said, "Hey Liz, I really enjoyed your company today. I'd like to see you tomorrow." She said, "Yeah, me too." Or, "I'd like to see you again." She said, "Yeah, me too." I said, "How about tomorrow?" She said, "Sure." And I have always heard this, but I never ever understood it. Excuse me. These hiccups and burps are from that damn Imbruvica. I've been hiccuping and burping like crazy. So that second date, I knew I was going to spend the rest of my life with her. So we started dating. Get about a month in. I said, "Liz, my short-term memory is really, really poor. Well, my long-term memory is pretty spot on." I said, "Am I off base in stating in elementary school, specifically fourth and fifth grade, because she's been a year behind me all through elementary through senior year. I said, am I out of bounds stating that you had a crush on me in fifth grade? And her face gets flush red. And she goes, how do you remember that? I said, well, your face tells me I'm right. She says, not only was it elementary school, it was junior high and high school, and I'm a 45-year-old woman living out my lifetime crush. Every box I had, you checked, and you checked boxes I never even knew I had. To be dating you is like a dream come true. So we start dating, and then I fly down to Georgia. We rent a big moving truck, and we drive back to Cleveland. And we stop in Cincinnati, where she went to college, and she worked for a while. And we stopped at two places that she worked. And one was an Indian restaurant, all Indians, and they all raved about her. And she's blonde hair, fair skin, and she's working at this Indian place. And then we went to a lead glass company. They make leaded glass, beautiful lead glass. And they're kind of hippies, but they're super nice people, and they all just raved about how nice she was, and yada, yada, yada. And the one guy that we were meeting there specifically, because she had left over old glass, leaded glass that we took to give back to him. And he says, he kind of pulled me aside. He said, please don't hurt Liz. She's too sweet of an individual to get hurt by you. I said, I have no intention of hurting her at all. So we drove home, and right now, I've got 10 pounds of shit in a 5-pound bag in this house. Out in the garage, there is stuff everywhere. Mostly out in the garage. There's no way a car's getting in the garage. But every day, it gets better than the last day. It's crazy. So then, when I had this last relapse, when I had that seizure on October 16th, and I came out of it, I seized for damn near 5 hours. Grand mal seizure. Got rushed to Metro, which is a high trauma hospital, Cleveland. They could not get me to stop. They intubated me. I got life flighted to the clinic, and they finally got me to stop. So that's 3 life flight helicopter rides I've been on, and I have no recollection. I was completely out of it. So after I get done with that, and I get my wits about me again, and I see just how exhausting this whole process is, I said, hey Liz, I never wanted to be a burden on anybody, and I especially didn't want to be a burden on you. I said, you're out, go, because this is not an easy road, and who am I kidding? When's the other shoe gonna drop? I'm on borrowed time, and this came out of nowhere. So I will not hold it against you. Actually, I would encourage you to just wash your hands and just go. Just find. Her response could not have been more perfect. That's the other thing. I never ever. The upbringing that I had, you were not allowed to cry. It just was not. And I just never cried. And I never showed emotion. Every girl I ever dated said, you're robotic, you don't have a heart, you don't show emotion. I wasn't being macho. I just didn't cry. And after this last episode with this bullshit brain cancer, I'm an absolute puddle. I cry at the drop of a hat. So I'm getting a little choked up now. Her response was, I feel as if I've been preparing my whole life just to take care of you. And that's all I want to do. So, she's now accepted into Ohio State's nurse practitioner program. And then the state of Ohio Police and Fire Pension Fund, completely screwed over guys like, or retirees like me, pre 65, pre 65, and so right now I'm a Medicare. Medicare is my primary. That picks up 80%. OP&F, Ohio Police and Fire, would pick up the other 20% by United Healthcare, and that was fantastic. It was a very, very smooth operation. And Liz and I made sure we were diligent, and we went to every meeting that OP&F had. And each time we went there, this John Galler, the president of the Johnny Bigwig, is looking at everybody in the audience and saying, I'm seeing a lot of grumbling. I'm seeing a lot of people pissed off. You mark my words. When you get done with this, you're going to come out here with a smile on your face and be very happy with what we got. Because we're going to give you an option that is comparable to what you currently have. Great? Well, that is not the case. And the state of Ohio no longer offers a secondary health care plan to pick up that other 20% if I want to stay on Medicare. So we were actually looking to move to Pennsylvania to stay close to the clinic, or to Florida because she's got family down there. And she was up first thing in the morning on the computer trying to find me a healthcare plan till all at night. I mean, late at night, all the while studying for her midterm, writing papers for her class, and was able to find me a insurance plan that was respectable, but nowhere near as close as I was. And Memorial Sloan Kettering, which is the #1 cancer hospital for my type of disease, would have been out of network. So that would have cost us crazy money. And she ended up getting A's in all her classes, ended up acing her midterm. So then I called my brother. I says, hey, I said, we're going to have to move. He said, no, you're not. Yeah, I am. I said, there is nothing here for us. He says, dig deeper. What are you talking about? He was, you know a lot of people. Dig deeper. So I start brainstorming. I'm just can't think of anybody. I've exhausted every avenue. So I thought. The dispatcher that was working the morning that I had my seizure is no longer a dispatcher. She's now high up in the dispatcher unit. Her name is Lucy. I call Lucy. I said, hey, you know anybody high up at OP&F that you can contact me with? I said, I'm getting screwed over royal. And she says, let me make a phone call. She calls me back, says, call this guy. This guy says, call this woman. I call this woman who is a high up at Ohio Police and Fire Pension Fund. And she says, well, I'm very sorry to hear that you're going through this. And Liz composed this email, eloquently written, detailing my horrific story, which is just, I was reading because she made a 3-ring binder for me for all the doctors and my health history, and I'm reading it, and I said, if I didn't know this guy, I'd say he's had a pretty rough life. She says, Jace, you've had the worst life I've ever heard of. And you're still happy and you're still smiling. She said, your story is incredible. She said, you got to get the story out there, because if you don't think you inspire people, you're out of your mind. She said, you are the poster child for giving cancer patients hope. You're my poster child. My dad died of cancer. My brother died of cancer, brain cancer. And to see you every day going at it, it's just, it's inspirational. So I truly believe that the good Lord kept me on this planet, and after I did that timeline that got me to this point, It is. I just asked Liz about it tonight. I said, do you believe that I'm here for a reason? She said, I believe you were here for me because I was drowning and you absolutely saved me. I thought they didn't make men like you anymore, and I thought the same thing. I was done trying to find a woman. I was, and I knew after the second date. I told everybody, I go, the search is over. It's done. I found it's, and we went out to lunch with her mom today, and I told her mom, I said, it's as if the good Lord said, I'm going to design the perfect woman for you. I give you Liz Noe. Everything I've ever wanted in a partner, in a female, she has. She's smart, she's funny, she's athletic, she's healthy, she's kind. I made a whole laundry list of words that would pop in my mind to describe her. Her generosity, her she cooks, she cleans, she dotes on me like I'm getting spoiled rotten, and she doesn't want me doing anything because I'm a high risk for infection. So, so I know I'm skipping around crazy. This is a horrible story I'm telling you because I'm all over the place. But last Thursday, got the spinal fluid drawn, and we got the results yesterday, and they came back no evidence of disease, which is great. That's exactly what we wanted to hear, but that does not mean it's 100% clear because when I was in New York visiting Dr. Gromes at Memorial Sloan Kettering, they drew spinal fluid out of my in my head, and then this other person tried to get my spinal fluid out of lumbar punch, which is I prefaced it. I said, hey, there's another burp. Excuse me. I said, hey, 14 years ago, when I had my first spinal fluid draw, lumbar punch, I said, I've had cluster headaches since I was a teenager, and I take injections for them, Imitrex injections or no Zomig nasal spray, and they work fantastic. But before I had those, they were splitting headaches. They're also called suicide headaches because you want to commit suicide. They're so painful. They're more painful than a migraine. They just don't last as long. Migraines can go for days. This is about an hour or two, but it feels like your head's splitting open. As bad as that is, the headache I got when they did my first lumbar punch was 10 times worse. I was screaming, yelling. And this Indian doctor, I'm yelling at him to, and he says, he's going to explain to me how this blood patch is going to shut it off like a light switch. And I am screaming, just do it. And he did it, and it did. It shut it off. I said, holy shit. I tell you. Shut it off, no, I tell you. So, I tell him, I tell him at Memorial Sloan Kettering, is there any way we can get that blood patch on the ready so in case this happens, you guys can, we don't do blood patches there, but we've got a smaller, thinner needle. Go ahead, knock your socks off. So she's digging. Well, zap down the left leg, zap down the right leg, over and over and over again. That's it. Stop it. So I go, Liz, call the clinic. I said, I'll get it done at the clinic. So Liz calls the clinic, and perfect storm. My doctor's out of the country, and so is his nurse. And the woman she talks to says, we only do lumbar punches on Fridays, and you probably won't get in for another 2 or 3 weeks. So that's going to push back my stem cell transplant that I'm supposed to be getting here in months. So I go back in, and I ask that masochist that was just jabbing me with a small thinner needle if she can use a large needle and draw the fluid out. She no problem. And she dug and zapped me. Ugh. If anyways, it was painful, and I told her to shut it down. So Liz had called back the clinic, and the woman tells me that was with the larger needle. She goes, I can't get it. You need to get an X-ray, guided imagery, spinal fluid draw. That way they can see exactly what they're doing. I can't get it. So Liz calls a clinic, and lo and behold, there's a separate part of the clinic that has this X-ray guided imagery, spinal fluid draw. So they said, call on Monday, maybe you get in Tuesday or Wednesday. So we got in Tuesday, and they did the spinal fluid draw, and the monitor was right in front of me, so I could see the needle go into my spine. And she zapped me a few times, but she was drawing it, and I thought she was back there abnormally long. I said, hey, what's going on back there? She says, well, your doctor must really want to do a lot of tests. I said, why is that? She said, because you're getting the max drawn. I said, what's the max? She said, 20 milliliters. So I turned around, my lips sucked in, joking, and I said, well, how come no headache? She says, well, you might have one in 2 or 3 days. Like clockwork, on the third day, I'm walking from the kitchen to the living room, like somebody ball batted me in the head. And she said, it's positional. When you lay down, it'll go away. So I laid down on the couch, and it took about 20 minutes, and it did subside. So I don't like to lay around, so I'm kind of an active person, and I get up to start doing whatever. About 20 minutes later, bing bong. So this went on for like 3 days. And so we get the results from the Omaya, and Dr. Gomes says, I'm sorry to say, it appears we found 6% lymphoma cells in your spinal fluid. As we're on the phone with him, Liz gets on her phone and gets onto the Cleveland Clinic portal called MyChart, and she can see my results, and they just come in. And the spinal fluid they took from my lumbar punch came back negative. So even though this one was negative this past Thursday, that doesn't mean my spinal fluid's completely clear. So I don't want to put the cart before the horse, and I don't want to count my chickens before they hatch, but I'm very happy that they didn't see cells. That's always a good thing. But I don't know. I don't know what I'm going to do. I've got an MRI coming up here on the 25th at the clinic, and then we fly out to New York to go meet the stem cell transplant team at New York Memorial Sloan Kettering. We're currently waiting on a consult with Dr. Julie Miller from Mass General in Boston, and we might do the same trip we did last time, fly to Boston, fly to New York, fly back home. But we haven't gotten a contact back from her. And we might want to meet with their stem cell transplant team. Nonetheless, I'm leaning towards Memorial Sloan Kettering. I'm on this private Facebook group where people have my disease. And there's this guy, Scott Baker, on there. He's 5 years out. He's about my age. He's a year older than me. And he said, you got it. They're the best in the world. That's where you got to go. Why wouldn't you go there? Well, the James in Columbus is only 2 hours down the road. No airfare, no taxi or Uber, no hotel for Liz, no crazy expensive New York dinners or lunches or any food. And the logistics would be a hell of a lot easier, I think, for her, because she's been really non-stop since day one. And she deserves a break. I'm leaning towards the James. They said they do. The Cleveland Clinic's done plenty of stem cell transplants, but they've never done one with my disease. And that doctor said, there's no way you're going to get 5 years out of this. I was pretty deflated when I left there. Was very disappointed with that appointment. Then we went down to the James, and she said, maybe 3 years before it comes back, but then we'll treat you again. And she was very, very optimistic. And Dr. Gromes at Sloan was even more optimistic with the 5 years. But every medical personnel I've met in the last 5 years, from techs to nurses to doctors to surgeons to fellows, I asked them, have you ever heard of the ECS? And nobody knows. Have you ever heard of it, read about it, taught it? Nope, nope, nope. And if they ask me, what is it? I'll tell them. If they don't, you're gone. Go down to James, ask her for the last question, and she says, yeah, I've heard of it. You have? She says, yeah. I said, where? She said, on the internet. I said, why? She said, because I'm a doctor and I want to learn. I said, well, I would like to congratulate you. She said, for what? I said, you are the first and only medical personnel, top to bottom, that I've asked that question, very same question to, for the last 5 years, and you are the only one that's answered it correctly. And then Liz sent me the article that less than 13% of medical schools in the States even teach the ECS, which would be like not teaching the central nervous system. It's that important. It's that big of a system in the body. It regulates just about everything. And the cannabis plant has the cannabinoids that work. I'm repeating myself. I think that's it for today, guys.